friends, and welcome to another edition of Moments in the Word. Have you ever stopped to consider how Jesus treated people? Take a walk with me for a few minutes down memory lane, and let's travel through the pages of the Gospels. As we do, I want you to notice how Jesus treated those around him. To the woman who was caught in adultery, he was compassionate. He was a gentleman with her who didn't even look her in the eyes as her accusers brought her before him. Then we see him with the leper, a man who everyone had pushed outside of the city. No one would touch him or come near him, yet Jesus humbly and graciously reached out and touched this diseased man. Then we watch Jesus with Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus had climbed up the tree because he wanted to get just a glimpse of who this man was that he had heard so much about. Jesus looked up at him and playfully said, "Come on down, Zacchaeus. I'm headed to your house today." And he just invited himself right over. Then we see Jesus with the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and his face completely changes. He no longer seems like that soft, gentle, kind, loving Jesus that we know. Instead, he all of a sudden seems harsh and stern and like a disciplinarian with them. Oftentimes we hear him use the word hypocrites. The word brood of vipers comes through the Gospels. And on one occasion, Jesus was so harsh with them that he told them, "You guys are like whitewashed tombs full of dead men's bones. On the outside, you guys look so good and so clean, but inside there is a rotten stink coming forth." I don't know about you, but I see two completely different faces of Jesus. One that is kind and compassionate and loving, and one that is stern and disciplinarian. Both of those facets of Jesus are very important. But have you ever wondered why he seemed to be so much harsher with the religious folks than he was with the sinners? I mean, in our way of thinking, doesn't it seem to make more sense that we're harsh on the people who are doing wrong, and yet gentle and forgiving on the people who supposedly are part of our group? Well, obviously that's the way a lot of people feel, because in Christian circles today, that's exactly what we see happening. We see the church, which is comprised of people. We see people being mean and harsh and hateful towards the sinners, trying to be disciplinarian-like towards sinners, while they're all cozy and warm and gentle and all fuzzy and ooey-gooey with those who belong on the inside with them. The complete opposite of what we saw in Jesus. So I ask you again, why was it that Jesus took a more stern face when he was dealing with the religious crowd, those who were supposed to belong on the inside? Well, think with me for just a minute, those of you that have children. And if you have children and you've ever allowed their little friends to come over and spend the night in your home, how do you act with those children? A little different than with your own, maybe? Maybe the things that you normally would discipline your children for, you let the guests get away with because they don't know any better? Have you ever sat there and gotten on to your child for doing something that a little friend had just done maybe 30 minutes prior, and then had your child look up at you and say, "But Mom, why didn't you get on to him? He just did it." That's kind of how it is with Jesus, with God. Those who are on the inside should know the rules, and they should know already how to behave. That's exactly what we expect of our children. They live in our home every day. They know the rules. Therefore, we expect that they're going to live at the standard that we have set. We're lenient with their friends because their friends don't know. They are from the outside, coming inside. They're trying to acclimate to an environment that they're not used to. Therefore, we are a little more gracious and merciful with them. That is exactly what we see in Jesus. He confronted and was more harsh and a little more disciplinarian-like with those who were already on the inside, because these men and women had studied the Torah and should have already known everything that they needed to know about how to please Jehovah God. But with sinners, he was compassionate and he was a little more giving, because he knew that they didn't know any differently. Friends, I want to encourage you today that if you have found yourself, and maybe through the words that you hear spoken right now in this devotional, maybe the Holy Spirit has brought some conviction to you because you realize that you've had it a little backwards, and that maybe you've been more lenient on those on the inside and been more willing to overlook their shortcomings than you have been towards those on the outside. You know, we have to extend grace and mercy towards those who are still caught up in sin because they don't know any different. They need to feel our love and our grace so that they will want to come into a relationship with Jesus. Evaluate yourself. Make sure you're treating people well. And no, this is no license to now go around and be rude to all the Christians that you know. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm simply trying to remind you and encourage you. Those on the outside don't yet know how to act, so stop treating them as though they do. Thank you so much for tuning in. Join us next time for another edition of Moments in the Word. Blessings.
So much I wanna do. My mouth just keeps on running.